first thing we'll do is head over to nodejs.org and download the latest long-term version. Once downloaded, we'll double-click the installer and follow the on-screen prompts. We'll skip installing the additional tools for now. Once installed, we'll open up PowerShell or command line and type in node -- version. This checks that Node is working and available to use anywhere on the command line. Then we'll do the same for npm using the npm -- version command, and with that we're ready to go. This is the first project I'm creating on this machine, so we'll find a suitable place to store our project files. This can be pretty much anywhere. I'll create a new folder for all my projects and a subfolder for this demonstration called My First Project. With that, I'll open up Visual Studio Code. It doesn't really matter which editor you use. Sublime Text is another popular editor, as is Notepad++. With Visual Studio Code open, I'm going to open up my project folder and create a file called server.js. This is what I'll run to start the Node.js server. Let's take a look at the script itself. The first line imports the built-in HTTP module within Node.js, and this allows you to create a HTTPS server. This line denotes the port number on which the server will listen. Port 3000 is commonly used for development servers. Here we set the host name, localhost, and that refers to our current machine. Then we create a HTTP server using the createServer method. It takes a callback function, often called requestListener, with two parameters. The first is the request object containing information about the incoming request, and the response object is used to send the response back to the client. The next line sets the HTTP status code to 200, which means OK, and the content type header to plain text, indicating that the response will be in plain text. Res.end sends the response body back to the client and ends the response. This line tells the server to start listening for incoming requests on the specified port and host name. The third argument is a callback function that runs once the server starts listening. Finally, we log a message to the console confirming that the server is running and showing the URL where it can be accessed. Now we have the script, we need to run it. We do this from the command line. A quick tip is to navigate to where you saved your file in Explorer, then type the letters CMD in the Explorer bar. This will open up a command line window in that directory. And then all we need to do is type the command node and your file name, in this case server.js, and after pressing return we get the confirmation as per the script, saying our server is running on a local host at port 3000. We can copy this URL and paste it into our browser, and as expected our response text is returned. And that is the very basics of how to get a Node.js server up and running. Okay, I appreciate that's just a string of text. So if you look at the script and pause the video for a moment, can you see how you could display some HTML? There are two elements that will change. The first is to change the content type to HTML, and the second is to replace the text with some HTML code. When we make changes, we need to restart the server. We can stop the existing server by pressing Ctrl and C and rerunning our node command. Once we do that, then sure enough, when we visit the page, we see our HTML. Obviously, one page is never enough, and even if it was, we wouldn't want it mixed in with our server logic, and this is where routing comes in. I've created two simple HTML files for our pages and extended our existing server code to include routing. You can find a link to the code in the description. Routing, in this case, is taking the URL you've typed in the browser and matching it to a file. Our first three lines are the same as before. We import the modules and specify the port and host name. We now use the FS module with its promises feature. A promise is a placeholder for a value that isn't available right away, but will be at some point in the future. Node.js uses this alongside asynchronous operations with the await keyword, so it can keep doing other tasks instead of waiting for slow operations like reading files or accessing databases to finish. The path module helps us create file paths, so this same script could run on both Linux or Windows and still find the correct file. Next, we create the core function that handles requests. We make it asynchronous and give it two parameters, req, the request, i.e. someone visiting your website, and res, the response, i.e. the content of the website. We use these parameters in the logic below. In the first section, if the request is for the root URL, we use the await to pause while it reads the index.html file, using the path.join function to create the full file path. Then, it sets the status code to 200, meaning success, and tells the browser it's sending HTML content. Finally, res.end sends both the content, the index.html file, and signals the response is complete. The next block is similar, but this time if the user types /about, it will find the about.html file and send that as the response, sending the response code and telling the browser it's HTML content, and finally sending resend and the content as before. If neither match, it sends 404 not found in HTML as the error page. The final part catches any errors that occur whilst processing the request, such as when a file can't be read. And finally, we tell the server to start listening for incoming requests on the specified hostname and port. We can demonstrate this by starting our new server2.js script and visiting our localhost URL on port 3000. When visiting our server, the request URL is root or just /, so therefore returns our index page. When we click the About page link, our new request URL is /about. This matches the REQ URL and then presents us with our about.html page. Finally, if we just type in a random page, it will match neither and return a 404 not found wrapped in HTML tags. In the last section of our tutorial, we're going to refactor the index and about pages and move the CSS into its own style sheet, and we'll see how we reflect that in our Node.js logic. Before we do, I'm intrigued to find out how you're using Node.js and what you plan to do with it. So please let me know in the comments. And if you don't have time, please drop me a like to let me know if this tutorial was helpful. With the refactored script, we're going to introduce a new function called getContentType, which we'll discuss in a moment. We're also going to update the logic to use the new function and handle our style sheet. Let's take a look at the changes. I've made the code more readable by introducing a new variable called filePath. This is instead of repeating the path.join function for each route. I set the file path based on the request URL. Our main aim was to allow for CSS files. Now, if a request comes in that starts with CSS, I'll take the requested style sheet URL and append it to the CSS directory, providing the full file path. As mentioned earlier, the new function called getContentType checks the file extension and returns the appropriate content type for the response. Now, to simplify reading, after determining the file path, I called the await function as before and set the content type using the above function to send the responses. And lastly, I added console.error, which is really useful for debugging because if something goes wrong, we can see the error details in our server logs, making it easy to troubleshoot. You may have also noticed that for where a page isn't found, as in 404 errors, I use the return resend straight away. This allows us to stop further execution of the function early on, which helps avoid unnecessary processing. The last step is to replace the CSS in each of the index and about pages with a link to our CSS file, and then we create a dedicated style sheet. With the changes complete, we can restart our server and visit our pages, and as expected, they display as before, with the difference this time being that we have a dedicated style sheet that we can see in the inspector. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you did, please consider liking or subscribing. Your support helps YouTube recognise this content as valuable for other viewers and motivates me to create more tutorials. Thanks all!